Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, the show that gives you advice on everything travel. We explore places you've always wanted to go, as well as giving tips for traveling in those places. We'll give you advice on the best sites for travel tips, information, and discounts. Join us as we travel the world, explore cultures, and meet new people. The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast has got you covered.
Welcome to the GSMC Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Stacy, here with...
I'm your other host, Sarah.
All right, and today we are talking about another location in Italy, Venice. Have you ever been to Venice, Sarah?
I haven't. Does that one place in Las Vegas where they take you on the little canal ride count?
Probably not.
And the sky is painted to look like clouds, and you have a gondolier and all that gondolier, not boat ride. Yeah.
I mean, if so, then the Harry Potter at Universal Studios should totally count as Hogwarts, but I don't think it does. So,
well, considering that's as close as we can actually physically get to Hogwarts,
right.
It kind of does. I mean, we could actually go to Venice.
True,
as opposed to just Las Vegas. But how about you? Have you ever been to Venice?
I haven't, and I have been wanting to go for so long because I remember... when I was maybe 11 or 12, I saw this little article where it was like, Venice is sinking. Venice is sinking.
Yes.
And I was like, I have to go before Venice disappears.
Before it disappears. I know. It's crazy. I mean, just the fact that it's built on water. I mean, I grew up in a landlocked state, so anything that's built on water fascinates me.
Well, and just the fact that it's built on water and has lasted this long, because I know this is a thing that they do now with cities where they do like landfill and then they build on landfill, which kind of makes me nervous and not something I would want to live on. But Venice has been around for centuries and is still there, even though it's sinking at this really, or some minuscule of 1 to 2 millimeters per year, which doesn't sound like a lot and not anything, you would notice unless you were recording it every single year.
Right.
So it'll be around for a while, but at the same time, this is something of a problem, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's just who looked at this series of canals and thought, hey, you know what? Let's build stuff on it.
or even more than that, it doesn't shock me that they did build it on this. It's actually a series of 118 islands.
Right.
With a whole bunch of canals, including the Grand Canal that I think most people visualize when they think of Venice. But who looked at this and thought, not only do I want to build there, but this is going to be a hugely megalith, popular and powerful city-state. Like this little group of islands connected by canals where you travel by gondolier is this major power during the Renaissance, really?
Yeah, I mean, apparently people with more imagination than I have.
Me too.
I guess I don't look at the things the same way other people do, which is good that we have people who can visualize better than I can. It just makes me think of movies that are set in Venice.
Right.
I mean, there's
movies.
There's all the romantic movies, of course, but then there's movies like The Italian Job, which starts out and they have the boats and the high-speed chase. And I'm sure that happens all the time in Venice.
Right. Or that scene from the third Indiana Jones where they also have the boats and the
high-speed chase. Yes.
That's Venice is either romantic or high-speed chases. There's nothing in between, evidently.
Yes. I'm sure every day in Venice people are looking out their window going, oh, there goes the high-speed chase again. I mean,
right on time.
Or however you would say that in Italian.
Right, which would sound better, of course, then.
Of course.
But no, the thing that also really shocked me about Venice is that it was one of the major Italian city-states, which city-states just in general as a power thing shocked me, even like the ancient Greece ones, because from California, which is, a sizable state, and then from America, which is a really sizable country. I'm like, okay, fine. That those are big, powerful things. I get. They're just big in size. I got it.
Right.
But this small little, I looked this up. There's a thing where you can actually sort of take an outline of a location and put it in a different location to see how big it is. So I looked up Venice and I put it somewhere where I know to see the difference. So I put it in San Francisco. It's about the same size as maybe Golden State Park and a half.
Wow.
It's like the same
I don't
length
think of
as Golden State Park, and it's just like maybe 2 or 3 times as wide.
Golden Gate Park.
Golden Gate Park. What am I saying? Golden State Park. Well, that too.
But it sounds similar. But,
the park
okay, so,
in Golden State.
Yeah, that is fascinating because I don't think of Golden Gate Park as that big.
Like imagine trying to rule all of California from Golden Gate Park.
Right. Interesting. Well, maybe. I mean,
I'd like to, but
I'm just gonna. Bye, Mom. I'm gonna go live in Golden Gate Park and rule California.
And your mom would probably have you committed.
Maybe. My mom's in Montana, so I probably wouldn't tell her. I'd just go live in Golden Gate Park. Okay, so it was a major city-state during the Renaissance, which, of course, was a very important time period, and lots and lots of things happened during the Renaissance. So how did that affect Venice's history going forward? I mean,
Venice location is very interesting because it's on the east side of Italy. So it's sort of it was at one point sort of like the gate holder between Europe and Asia. So when all the trade routes were overland, that made Venice really important because it was sort of like you can't get to the rest of Europe without going through Venice. Like all roads lead to Rome, but all trade routes go through Venice.
Go through Venice, sure.
I'll go with that. Okay. So it gave it a lot of power monetarily, but it also made it, a location where a lot of ideas came to meet together.
Right.
So it was actually at one point, it was the printing capital of the world. And you and I have talked on several podcasts about how we're really, really into books.
Yes.
So this is, I think, part of the reason why it was one of the major city-states for the Renaissance is it's there printing a whole lot of books.
Right.
At this time where ideas are starting to flourish all over again, the place you want to be is probably where all the ideas are being printed.
Well, sure, yeah. Oh, and you want to be there to get your stuff printed. Yeah, absolutely. Not only to read what's being printed, but to get your stuff printed.
I mean, in the pre-internet era, books were the only way to find out anything, really.
Right. Yes. And what I found interesting about Venice was that it didn't actually become part of Italy, the Kingdom of Italy as it was then, until 1866. So to put that into context, we had just finished the Civil War in 1866, and we're a young country. So Venice kind of held out.
Well, and even Italy kind of held out to be one solid place known as Italy instead of all these little city-states. Like 1866, we've just finished the Civil War. We're in the middle of, the Industrial Revolution. Everything's becoming really sort of, I don't want to say industrial, but, we're starting to get to like what we consider progress. Mm-hmm. And Italy doesn't even exist yet.
Yeah, that is kind of strange.
Like, Italy just seems this so classical thing that it's like, wait, you weren't actually Italy at that point. My brain cannot compute. What are you talking about?
Yeah, all the places were there. You just didn't call yourself Italy as we picture it today.
Right. And the Kingdom of Italy is an interesting thing because I don't think it's called the Kingdom now, but it was actually it got traded around a bit. So it was like taken over by Napoleon at one point, and then given to the Austrians, and then finally at some point becoming its own thing instead of this thing that other people who aren't anywhere near this country are ruling.
Right.
So it's really strange to think of Venice and Italy as not the way we, like, you have this sort of romanticized view of, Venice was always this beautiful thing and it just existed so that couples could ride down gondoliers and it was always peaceful and serene. And no, not really. Actually, it was kind of tumultuous at times.
Yeah. Speaking of couples, isn't there a legend about couples, being a couple in Venice? That there's folklore that says if a couple in a gondola kiss as they pass underneath each bridge, they will remain in love forever, which is very sweet. But aren't there 400 bridges in Venice?
I was like, so you're just going around. Is this like the thing you do the day after your wedding? It's like, okay, you got married, you spent your wedding night. Now the day after wedding, instead of having the brunch that we have in America, just go around all day for every bridge, for all 400 bridges, and you have to give a kiss. That would probably
how long does
take
that
a while?
Yeah.
Oh my, because again, it's not a large place, but with 400 bridges and moving by, I don't know how fast gondoliers move because you never really see them as like speedy things. This is supposed to be a
right. I mean, it's a
luxury,
guy with a pole, and he's just sort of poling you down the canal.
So you don't think it's a very quick thing, but yeah, 400 kisses.
I mean, I guess that sounds romantic and sweet, but I might get bored after a while. Well, don't get me wrong. I love my husband. I love kissing my husband. But I don't know, just like being doing this 400 bridges.
Well, maybe that's a sign of your commitment to this person. It's like, I love you this much.
Yeah.
I will kiss you 400 times in a row, however long that takes.
Wow. I hope our marriage isn't going to fail now because I just said that. Shoot.
Well, we're going to take a break and wish Sarah's marriage well. Stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Travel Podcast.
Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Welcome back to the GSMC Travel Podcast. Today we are talking about Venice and all the possible romantic aspects of it, I guess you would say.
Mm-hmm. Or the ways you can ruin your marriage by not getting... What if you only get 399 kisses? Well, then you're just in trouble.
Or you just won't get to, whichever golden, platinum, whichever anniversary they are. I don't know. Clearly, I'm not married. I don't know all the different anniversaries. But whichever one, you will just get to not that really great named one. Let's just go with that.
Okay. Yes.
But anyways,
so what else?
Speaking of marriages, one of the locations I really would love to go to if I ever went to Venice is the Doge's Palace. Mm-hmm. Have you seen the pictures of this thing?
I'm sure I have.
I mean, it's inspired. It's inspired a lot of architecture, so you've probably seen something at least similar to it. Mm-hmm. But what I love about the Doge's Palace, and maybe it's partly because it seems to be sort of carved out of all white marble or whatever the stone is, it almost looks like a wedding cake.
Oh,
like and for some odd reason, the architecture is called like Gothic or Venetian Gothic, but it's not Gothic like Hot Topic Gothic, but like something about Gothic, and it doesn't even seem to me like Notre Dame Gothic either. Mm-hmm. Like there's no gargoyles or anything.
That's what I was thinking was more Gothic, and
right.
I wasn't going with like goth. Interesting.
I'm sure I'm showing my age.
It has no dark black eyeliner.
But I think partly because it's carved out of white marble, and the top half has this sort of intricate carving. It looks like the fondant of a wedding cake. Uh-huh. Really fancily decorated. Like it looks almost frothy, and I kind of do want to like carve it and take out a bite, but of course I can't do that because it's stone, and my dentist would not be happy if I did that.
And I don't think the people of Italy would be very impressed if you were to, carve out a giant chunk of the palace and try to eat it.
Right. And I mean, probably not even Venice, because the Doge's Palace has had a lot of construction over the years with fires and parts breaking down because Venice is sinking. So it's constantly, it seems, having some part reconstructed. They probably really wouldn't like it if I took out a chunk. They're like, we just fixed that. We just did that last year.
We've been working on this for 500 years, and now you come along.
Like, we don't have enough problems.
Exactly.
But anyways, Doge's Palace did used to be the palace for the Doge, or I had to look this up. I didn't know what a Doge was. Mm-hmm. But Doge is sort of the Italian for Duke. So it was like the leader of Venice, the person who was in charge at the time and did all the laws and the punishments and all that.
Okay.
So it's now actually part of the Venetian Museums Network. And there's, I think, 11 or 12 museums in the Museums Network. And the Doge's Palace is one of it. And it's like right across from St. Mark's Basilica, which is another major touristy place in Venice. Mm-hmm. Going into it though, the reason I would want to go is they have a lot of art by different Venetian artists, but it's done chronologically.
Oh, fun.
Which I always have that problem when I go to museums. It's like, hey, this is really cool, but I'm pretty sure like I just jumped 300 years from that painting over there, and then this one seems to have been 30 years later. What? Wait, what's going on here? I don't understand. I can't follow. Is there a way I'm supposed to walk around this museum specifically to get things in order, or just go as you please.
You have a very structured mind. You just like things to be laid out in a way that makes sense to you.
Well, I mean, and I'm not a big fan of museums, but if I'm going to go to a museum, I'm hoping at least to like actually gain some information from it, which I can't do if I'm like, I don't know where this fits in with the other 600 things I just saw. So I'm like,
right.
So the fact that this one is done chronologically, I'm like, aha. So I can see how that artist influenced this artist will influence that artist 200 years later.
Sure,
I can
so you
see
get the progression.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that led me to a question which apparently I have now forgotten. Yes, now I got my brain back on track. I was going into progression, and so if the Doge's Palace is right across from St. Mark's Basilica. In the last episode, in our first episode, we were talking about our imaginary vacation and how we would plan it. And this sounds like, while it would be beautiful and amazing and of historical significance, it would also be teeming with people all the time.
I mean, yeah. But both the Doge's Palace and St. Mark's Basilica are major tourist locations. But I think it's also really hard just to not find that in Venice.
I would imagine, yeah.
Because Venice is becoming, I forget what they called it, but sort of like a tourist by day, absolutely nobody by night sort of city.
So they don't roll up the sidewalks, they roll up the canals.
Well, no. And actually, they kind of do roll up the sidewalks because they have at times these like raised boardwalk sidewalks. Because Venice, along with sinking, actually suffers at times from this thing called acqua alta, which means high water. And it's this water that occurs seasonally based off the seasonal winds that sort of back the water out of the canal and therefore put it onto, the parts of Venice that you don't need a gondola for.
Oh.
And so there's actually certain buildings even have it marked in like the stone on the outside of the building how high that water rose by year. So instead of like marking your height as you go by year, it's like, oh, this year it was only 12 inches, but last year it was 22. Look at how much it's grown.
That fascinates me. I mean, people who live in places, I mean, even floodplains, like how do you just make sure that it's like having a toddler? You make sure nothing important is down below a certain height.
I mean, that's part of why it's also becoming a tourist thing, is because it's becoming really expensive to own a place there. And I mean, I have no idea, even in California, what flood insurance costs. And luckily, or maybe unluckily, live in a place that doesn't normally flood, so we don't really have it. But then, of course, that will be the place that floods. That's always how it works, is when you aren't prepared for it, then it will flood. But I imagine that flood insurance in Venice must be either really expensive or just non-existent, because this has got to be something that, you're dealing with every year. This is a seasonal high water thing. It's like, seriously, this house, we filed a claim for this house every year for the past decade. We're not insuring you anymore.
Yes. So if you've been to Venice or if you've lived in Venice, we would love to hear how this works. Find us on social media and tell us can you buy flood insurance in Venice? Are you supposed to buy flood insurance in Venice? Do you just live there and have it balance out the flooding versus balances out living in Venice?
Right. Or like, I think it was in one of the James Bond films, and now I'm forgetting which one because there are like probably more than the number of years I've been alive. But one of them, they're actually running through Venice, and there's like these floating things that are used to keep the house up or something, and they start exploding. And I'm like, you're built on a sinking island canal thing, and then now you're putting it on floats, and the floats don't seem like the safest or securest of things to build your house on.
Right. And do they really exist, or were they just put there for dramatic effect?
That is also
they could blow them up in the James Bond movie?
Well, we always put things in James Bonds just to blow it up. But I mean, like these houses look beautiful, and I really do just want to like go buy a nice sundress and just stroll down Venice, hopefully with my very handsome Italian lover.
Right. Sure. Although when I think of Venice, I don't think of strolling. I mean, I realize that it's islands, but I don't ever picture islands. I just picture the water.
The water, yeah. Well, I also picture that one movie with Katharine Hepburn where she, I think, decides to finally go out and live her life, and she goes to Venice, and was filmed in either the 50s or 60s, so I have that mindset in my head of, go back to the 50s of Venice, and then you have to be strolling with your Italian lover.
Absolutely, and looking like Katharine Hepburn, who is much taller than either of us.
Right.
we can never pull off the Katharine Hepburn statuesque persona. But yeah, when I think of a lot of Italy, I think of kind of that 50s movie star running around on a Vespa, like a movie montage.
Right, yeah. The guy that 9 was based off of, I forget what it is now. But yeah, definitely that, or because I just can't have, anything in between. I think of like the 1400s and like a Venetian carnival with the masks.
Yes, yeah.
That sort of famous thing of like Casanova, who was actually from Venice, of running around again with your Italian lover, because you can never escape that. But, now in this like dress that of course requires a corset and like 20 undergarments.
And it weighs 1 million pounds. But yes, it's either the Renaissance or it's the 50s.
There's nothing between.
All really about the clothing for me and the outfits.
All right. Well, we're going to take another short break, but when we come back, we will be talking a bit more about Venice and some tips if you are going to go there. So stick around. You're listening to the GSMC Travel Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Travel Podcast. Today we've been talking about Venice and our wonderful imaginary either Renaissance or 1950s Venice. There's nothing in between. But
apparently it's the GSMC Time Travel Podcast.
Oh, that would be so great.
Yes.
Travel through time and space. Mm-hmm. But one of the things I was thinking about in my, again, wonderful imaginary trip to Venice would be, okay, I have to have this sundress. I don't even like dresses that much, but for some odd reason, I really feel I need like a very pretty sundress to go strolling around Venice. And of course, to set that off, you need decent accessories to go with that dress.
Okay.
But
absolutely.
A tip for today is actually do not pack anything you'd be heartbroken to lose. Mm-hmm. So I actually have this really pretty necklace that my grandmother gave me. And I think she got... It may or may not be older than my grandmother. I cannot remember. But it's a really pretty necklace that would go great with my imaginary sundress and Italian lover. But if I brought it to Venice and then, lost it or lost my bag.
Or your Italian lover turned out to be a charlatan and stole it from you.
A real Casanova. Oh, how dare he. Then it's like, crap, that it's not just a necklace and my terrible Italian lover. That was something that, was meant a lot to me and was from my grandmother. So... And you wouldn't think of that normally. Like when you're planning a trip, it's just like, okay, this outfit goes with this. I've got to take it because it just pulls the whole outfit together if you're one of those people. But then again, if you take it on the trip, there's way more chances to lose it or have it stolen.
Yes. I mean, you can, obviously you can lose things. Things can get stolen. You can forget something on the plane. I mean, there's just...
Or in the hotel room. I do that a lot.
Yes. There's just so many ways to... You can put it in the safe in your hotel room for safekeeping and then forget and leave it there.
Right.
Yeah. So... As much as you want to take that XYZ object that would go so perfectly, yes, do be very careful in the selection. If it's irreplaceable, do not take it with you.
Do not take it.
Or if you do take it with you, then you just have to be insanely aware, hyper aware of its presence all the time.
Yeah. So if it's a ring from your grandmother and you just are never taking this off, so long as again your Italian lover doesn't steal it while you're sleeping.
Right.
Fine. But, if it's something that you would possibly take off and then your eyes aren't on it, leave it at home. It's much better leave it at home and leave it in your imagination than to take it and risk losing it.
Absolutely. Yes, excellent tip. Thank you.
So I know we've been imagining quite a lot with Venice. And really, I'd love the imaginary lover to not be imaginary. But
or a charlatan.
Or a charlatan. Well, I mean, sometimes, better to, so they say, better to have loved and lost than never have loved at all.
And charlatan is just really fun to say.
And when you're in Italy, do as the Italians do with lovers, I guess.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We won't continue with that thought. But anyways, our site for today is TripAdvisor, which I know a lot of people, if you travel a lot, you probably know TripAdvisor. It's one of those sort of one-stop shop sites where you can compare prices for flights or hotels and see who's offering the best deal and choose from there. But one of the things I really like about TripAdvisor and didn't know this existed is they've got this sort of trip inspiration feature.
Oh.
And it was hard to find, actually, because it's not, for some odd reason, on their main site. You have to sort of go to the little menu bar thing where you would click it and then it brings down the rest of the menu,
Mm-hmm.
But if you do that, there's this thing called Trip Inspiration, and it has, it lets you sort of explore and gives different options for trips. If you're like, oh, I kind of know I want to go in this general area of the earth, but I don't know specifically where or for what exactly, but it's just like, I'd really like to go to, Europe for some reason. Just anywhere in Europe would be great, including Italy. Then it has this thing where you can choose by where you want to go, but also by what you're looking for. So if you're looking for adventure or family fun or shopping, there isn't, unfortunately, a thing for Italian lovers.
I was just going to ask that. You read my mind.
No, TripAdvisor. You need to put this on your main site and get the option for lovers. Just get on that.
TripAdvisor meets Tinder.
Oh my gosh. Please, no. But I mean, I think that's really cool because, for some people, what's really great for, a jet-setting 20-something is not great for, a family of 4 with young children.
Right.
They're really not going to care about the same things.
Right.
So being able to look at it and go, oh, I'm much more interested in this, I think is really, and I was playing around with it and I was just like, I don't care about shopping. But the shopping ones...
Where are you going to get your sundress if you don't go shopping?
My Italian lover will bring it with him, just as part of a package deal. That's an interesting lover. But just again, comparing, someone who wants to go shopping for all the places and, if that's your thing for travel, good for you, versus someone who, would want to go more for adventure.
Right. Or you could plan your Eat Your Way Through Italy tour and find all the top-rated restaurants or the hidden gems of restaurants or those types of things, I would imagine. Do they have they do. I've been on TripAdvisor. I don't know why I'm asking. They have ratings, so you can go and see how things have been rated and that type of thing, which is always nice. I mean, not always completely accurate, but
I mean, TripAdvisor, especially if you've got a large number of ratings on it, seems pretty good. And when I was looking at Venice, one of the things that kept coming up for Doge's Palace on TripAdvisor was that it's evidently got some of the rooms closed because, again, they're constantly doing construction at Doge's Palace. So that was a good hint that, oh, hey, there's a lot of rooms closed at the moment, but you still pay the regular price, even though that's the case. And it's like, oh, well, then maybe I'll go see one of the other, 400 or so palaces in Venice, since this one seems to be not fully open. Good to know. Thank you for that, recent raters. But also even the ability to book an attraction on TripAdvisor, not just a flight or a hotel, but to book an actual tour.
Oh, okay.
You can do that on TripAdvisor as well.
Nice. So you can basically plan your entire trip.
Yes.
How about restaurant reservations? Do you think you can do that?
It depends if they're on TripAdvisor, but there definitely are some.
Okay.
But I think restaurant reservations are more, I don't want to say individualistic, but you know what I mean? The restaurants are like, you know what? If you really want to come here, you will find a way to come here. That's part of our mystique is not everybody knows about it. Whereas, for something that's a tour that's so touristy, they're like, absolutely, everybody must know about this. We totally want to put this on the site. So it depends on what the location is going for, whether or not they're on there.
So TripAdvisor is to travel agents what self-checkout is to grocery stores, basically. You can go and have the friendly checker help you and have conversation and do that, or you can be completely antisocial and just go and do it yourself.
Right. If you know what you want, fine. If you're one of those people, it's like, part of the trip of going to the grocery store is to have that conversation with the checkout. Right. I don't know why, because I'm not that social, but to have the nice conversation about the weather, and you want the friendly face. You have this, or even to say, I couldn't find whatever, help me, or give me a suggestion for.
Exactly.
There's also that.
Although my neighborhood market, they have got the perkiest cashiers I have ever met, and there's no self-checkout. Oh. So you have to go to one of the perky. And I mean, I like that they're friendly, but they comment on everything.
Right.
Oh, you're getting blah, blah, blah. And they
right.
Yes, please talk about whatever it is that I have in my cart so that everyone knows.
Everyone in the store must know. Yeah, that was one of the things I really liked about when self-checkout came up. And also just because I like doing things by myself, I was like, yes, I can breeze through, and no one's going to ask me how I am today. And if I'm not having it, especially if I'm not having a good day, I really do not want to talk to perky checkout people.
Yes. And that has absolutely nothing to do with Venice.
No.
But Venice, very awesome destination that is going in the someday to be visited file.
The must go someday, yes. Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time when we will be talking about nowhere near Italy, but a very, I'm going to say, totally different, but still very interesting place, which is Monteverde, Costa Rica. So we'll see you guys next time. You've been listening to the GSMC Travel Podcast.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From travel to health and wellness to entertainment and life and happiness to sex and relationships. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast.